welcoming everyone in. Oh, lovely to see everyone popping on the screen. Beautiful. Welcome, welcome.
So welcome everyone. Um, my name is Nell Ostrom and I'm here with the Prairie Sangha and I'm in Winnipeg, Canada. I'd like to welcome you to our gathering of Lineage Stories. And Lineage Stories is a series of online events that began in the fall of 2023. And the intention is to connect insight meditation practitioners like ourselves with the roots of our practice through a series of dialogues with prominent North American insight meditation teachers, such as the ones we have with us tonight.
Right.
And it's an opportunity to hear their stories, their memories of their Asian mentors in their early days as Dharma students. And so the Lineage project has been supported by IMS Online and offered by the Prairie Sangha. And there is a working group with the Prairie Sangha, which includes prairie cities and centers in Edmonton and Calgary, Regina, and Saskatoon. And I myself, I'm with the Two Rivers Insight Meditation Community of Winnipeg. Right. So I'm in Winnipeg. I'm part of the Two Rivers Insight Meditation Community here. And now I'd like to turn it over to Saskatoon for a representative there, one of the representatives of the Prairie Sangha.
Nell, I wonder if you'd like to offer the land acknowledgement before we do that.
Of course, yeah. So I'd like to invite you to take this time to acknowledge the connection to the land on which you are living and what that connection is to the indigenous nations of your region. I live in the province of Manitoba, which is located on land covered by 6 numbered treaties, as well as unceded territories that are the original lands of the Anishinaabeg, the Anishinaabeg, the Dakota Oyata, the Denizalin, the Inuit, the Nahatawak nations, and Manitoba is also the homeland of the Red River Métis. And the land acknowledgement, we honor the people who lived here before us and who called this land their home. And we also acknowledge the mistakes which are part of our history of colonization that have caused deep and lasting harm. So let's take a moment of silence now to reflect on your role in healing past mistakes and working towards reconciliation. So thank you for respecting and acknowledging the traditional lands of the indigenous people in your region. And now I'd like to turn it back over to Jeannie.
Thank you so much, Nell. So beautiful. I really appreciate that. And I want to just, say how much we appreciate you as a Dharma leader in our community. So thank you so very much. And yes, I'm Jeannie Corrigal and a member of the Prairie Lineage Project, guiding teacher of the Saskatoon Insight Meditation Community since 2012, and more recently, the guiding teacher also for the Regina Insight Meditation Community. And I'm going to offer just a bit of information for you on this session and some gratitudes before I introduce our very special guests. And so want to let you know that they'll have the time for questions and answers or responses towards the end of our session. And Lorna Tyler from Regina is going to be collecting those. And so Catherine, who's our host from IMS, can people just put their questions in the chat, Catherine?
Yes, they can do that. Go ahead and open up the chat to everyone.
And maybe just, yeah, okay. Great. Thanks so much. And so I want to thank Catherine and IMS for collaborating. And Catherine Wen is our beautiful host and really appreciate your hosting, Catherine. Thank you. And I want to thank also Donna Anjali, who gave us the photo that is behind Nell and I that represents our prairies. And we wanted to just use that as a way of offering a warm prairie welcome to everyone. And if you look around, we're going to spotlight the teachers for the session, but if you go on gallery view for a moment, look around, you'll see beautiful. We've got 70 practitioners here, all together from a wide range of locations, and we're just so happy to welcome you here to this beautiful session tonight. Also want to thank Malin Rosen of Saskatoon, who has created a virtual lineage tree for us. And Catherine, could you please share the screen for that virtual lineage tree? We want to just give you an image of it. We will send out a link to this lineage tree when the session is done, like right after it'll come out, and we'll update it when this session's done. We hope that this will be an ongoing resource for all of us. And so we'll send that out right after the session. Thanks, Catherine, along with a link for a Dana link for those who are able to support our teachers financially. Thank you so much. And so, friends, our guests are senior teachers, and we in this Insight Meditation tradition. And we have a very, very special guest tonight that I'm going to introduce 3 of our teachers, and then our 3rd teacher is going to introduce our very special guest tonight. And so we're really grateful to all of you for answering the call in a way, answering our call in a way, to help us to understand more about the teachings of this beloved teacher, Sayadaw U Tejaniya, more about his influence in our own practice, because we're not always aware of all the influences of streams of different teachers in our practice. And so for every one of us on this call, you're helping us to understand more deeply Sayadaw U Tejaniya's teachings, so that we can use them and work with them more intentionally and more clearly, and inspire us in carrying this beautiful gift forward, and empowered in a way by a sense of our collective roots. And so thank you on all of our behalf. And so Andrea Fella has practiced insight meditation since 1996, studying with both Western and Asian teachers, and now teaches retreats across the country, across the continent. And Andrea, you may not know this, but there's many practitioners here on the prairies who tune into your online teachings. Many, many, many. I know I'm speaking for many here who consider you their teacher. And of course, Andrea does this as she's a co-guiding teacher at the Insight Meditation Center in Redwood City, California, and is online there a lot. And so we know, as your bio says, how beautifully you teach with clarity and practicality, and we love you, Andrea. And Carol Wilson began practicing insight meditation in 1971 with S.N. Goenka in Bodh Gaya in India. And in the 1980s ordained for a year in Thailand. And she studied with many Asian and Western Theravadan teachers, and is especially influenced by Sayadaw U Pandita, and in the past 15 years, Sayadaw U Tejaniya. And then she teaches, of course, internationally, and is a core IMS teacher. And we have a special connection with Carol too, because you've taught here in Calgary, Carol, at least once. So I was there. I'm not sure how many other times you taught here. But I know that there's at least one of your longtime students on this call, Jill Forrester. Yes, there she is. And another special connection we have with you, Carol, is that it was you on behalf of the IMS teaching team that gave me the transmission to teach when I graduated in 2021. So that's always a special gratitude in my heart. And then Alexis Santos has practiced insight meditation since 2001, studying with Burmese, Thai forest, and Tibetan teachers. And his primary teacher is Sayadaw U Tejaniya. And he ordained as a Buddhist monk in Burma with Sayadaw U Tejaniya from 2003 to 2005. And Alexis co-founded Open Door Meditation Center in Portland, Maine, teaches retreats in the US and internationally, and offers monthly, day-long online retreats in the style of Sayadaw U Pandita through his online Sangha. And that
U
Sayadaw U
Tejaniya, not U Pandita.
Sayadaw U Tejaniya. Sayadaw U
Lost its
Tejaniya.
names. That's okay. Some Sayadaw.
Sayadaw U Tejaniya. And so we'll provide websites for these teachers in the information that comes out to you right after this retreat or after this session. And so we'll claim all of you as our own after today. And Alexis, if you could introduce our extra special guest.
Okay, thank you, Jeannie, for those introductions. And I am happy to be introducing a beloved friend and just dear human being to my heart and to all of our hearts, to Carol and Andrea. We love Ma Thet. We call her Moosh, but Ma Thet is a little bit more formal. Hi, Ma Thet. Thanks for coming. Ma Thet, as some of you probably do know, has been a translator for Sayadaw into English, without whom I'm not sure we would have gotten the exposure of a lot of U Tejaniya's teachings. I mean, Ma Thet really, in some ways, helped, I think, partly craft some of the messaging, and it's not just translating. There was, I think, a heavy interpreting going on. Sometimes Sayadaw would just say 2 words, then Ma Thet would talk for 5 minutes. And we would get the Dharma mixture of these 2 wonderful beings and minds. But Ma Thet also has been with Sayadaw for so long that he also could just say a couple words and Ma Thet knew what he would be pointing to. But I'm so grateful. When I first arrived to Burma, Ma Thet was there, and I wouldn't have had a chance really to get the teachings, because at that time Sayadaw's English was not available. So Ma Thet, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for all of your service.
Thank you, Dewitt. Thank you. Thank you so much, Alexis. Thank you.
You
Ma
might
Thet, for
say
being here.
Ma Thet's coming in from Singapore right now. Just
Thank you so much for being with us, Ma Thet. So appreciated. So appreciated so much. Well, we have some a couple of pictures of Sayadaw U Tejaniya that we thought we'd start with, and then we start with some questions to our guests. So, Catherine, could you share the first couple of their Sayadaw U Tejaniya? Beautiful, beautiful picture, which inspires a lot of gratitude. And then the next one, Catherine, as well. This one is at the Forest Refuge, and we chose this one because it's Canada up and it's still snowing up here. So we wanted to honor that. So thank you, Catherine. There's a beautiful, and we'll show the rest of them later on. Thank you. And so, friends, this is our beloved teacher that we're here to share about. And so perhaps 1 or 2 of the teachers could respond to the first couple questions, and then the third question I'll ask you all to respond to. But is there someone who could describe how Sayadaw U Tejaniya fits into the general lineage of IMS, and who his teachers were? What's the lineage there?
Eli?
who's going to do it? Who's going to do it? You doing it, Ma Thet?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, you do it. You do it.
Okay. So Sayadaw U Tejaniya's main meditation teacher is Shwe Oo Min Sayadaw. We saw a picture of Shwe Oo Min Sayadaw just now. So Sayadaw met Shwe Oo Min Sayadaw. I will keep referring to them as Sayadaw, which just means venerable teacher. So Sayadaw U Tejaniya met Shwe Oo Min Sayadaw when he was a child. His father brought him, their whole family, their whole clan would go every week to Shwe Oo Min Sayadaw's monastery. And so from a very young age, they would hear Dhamma stuff from Shwe Oo Min Sayadaw. Shwe Oo Min Sayadaw's teacher, his meditation teacher, is a Sayadaw called Mengun Jetavana Sayadaw. When Shwe Oo Min Sayadaw was, after he finished all his monk studies and everything, and he started practicing, he went to several teachers, and Mengun Jetavana was one of the first ones. And then I think there was another Sayadaw called Sayadaw Arya or something. And finally, he got to Mahasi Center. And Mahasi Sayadaw's teacher was also Mingon Jitavana Sayadaw, if I recall correctly. Yeah, so I guess that's the connection. And when after Shwe Oo Min Sayadaw had practiced a while with Mahasi Sayadaw asked him to start teaching. And Shwe Oo Min Sayadaw was in charge of the male cohort of yogis. He didn't teach the female yogis. And that's how Sayadaw U Tejaniya's father knows Shwe Oo Min Sayadaw, because he went to Mahasi to practice, and Shwe Oo Min Sayadaw was Sayadaw U Tejaniya's father's meditation teacher.
Okay. Hey, well, thank you for that. We will put that on our lineage tree for sure. Thank you.
Well, and then a little bit more, perhaps. You could say something, Carol, but I just wanted to just mention the
about
connection.
how it connects to IMS. I'll just say how that connects. Right, right. But that's great. I didn't remember that about Mingan. He's very famous Sayadaw in Burma. I mean, was long dead. But so Mahasi, the lineage from Mahasi to Sayadaw U Pandita directly to IMS is quite a strong and direct lineage. And correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't there a period, Ma Thet, when U Pandita and Shwe Oo Min were both like co-teachers under Mahasi Sayadaw? He had them both as teachers in his center.
Yes, yes, because you would say Sayadaw U Pandita is the second generation of teachers. Trained by Mahasi Sayadaw. So like Sayadaw U Pandita's teachers would have been one of the first 5 monks, which included Shwe Oo Min Sayadaw.
Right, right. And so actually when IMS was incorporated as a church, that's our 501c3 status as a church. So you have to have a direct lineage, so to speak, as a church. And our lineage goes back through Mahasi Sayadaw. So actually, it's. I mean, IMS, we're not limited. In terms of being a yogi, you wouldn't even know that. You don't need to know that. But just knowing directly from Mahasi Sayadaw, and that was even before some of the teachers like Joseph and Sharon had sat a lot with Sayadaw U Pandita. This was back in the 70s. So, in fact, Mahasi Sayadaw came to IMS in 1978 and taught a retreat there, which was actually very touching. We didn't even know, we were a bunch of kids. We didn't even know how respected and what a big deal it was for him to come with Ujanika and some others. So that's a direct lineage in terms of the legality of it. And so I just wanted to put that in.
So Mahasi Sayadaw was the teacher of Sayadaw U Pandita and Shwe
Oo Min.
So both of them, and then Shwe Oo Min was the teacher of Sayadaw U Tejaniya.
Well, it sounds like actually that Mingan Sayadaw was the teacher of Shwe Oo Min, but then he was,
as well,
practicing together. Yeah. Okay. They're all kind of in there together anyway.
Okay. Great. And Andrea, you wanted to add something?
Carol added it all.
Okay. All right. Great.
Just one thing. My understanding also, Ma Thet, I remember U Tejaniya telling me that Shwe Oo Min Sayadaw had actually was the one who was calling Sayadaw U Pandita to come, because Shwe Oo Min was wanting to leave the Mahasi Ekta. As it got kind of very big, he was asking to take leave, and he did that 3 different times. And by the 3rd time, Mahasi Sayadaw gave him permission to leave and said, okay, you can go after 10 years. But Shwe Oo Min Sayadaw was very close to U Pandita. Sayadaw U Pandita was, my understanding was one that was inviting U Pandita to come and be the teacher with him and to replace him at the end. I don't know if it was to replace him at the end or during the time, but that Shwe Oo Min Sayadaw was part of that invitation for U Pandita to come.
Replace who?
For U Pandita to come to be teaching at the Mahasi Ekta.
I think it's, I don't know about sorry, I lost some of it because it froze just now. But
Okay.
the way I know it, Shwe Oo Min Sayadaw left Mahasi quite early on to go into kind of refuge to meditate, right?
Yeah, after 10 years.
But
Yeah.
yeah. And then Sayadaw Pandita, who has a lot of respect for him, he's continued to kind of every year he brings his yogis to go and pay respect to Shwe Oo Min Sayadaw and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But so when I don't know whether it was when Mahasi Sayadaw was still alive or after. So one thing we need to know about Mahasi Center is that unlike many other meditation centers, Mahasi Center was not owned by Mahasi Sayadaw. Mahasi Sayadaw did not set up Mahasi Center. Mahasi Sayadaw was invited by a group of lay people. So at a time when Vipassana was not well known, Mahasi Sayadaw kind of like his teachings kind of exploded in Burma. He was teaching lay people like farmers and stuff, and there was lots of stories of people getting awakened and stuff like that at that time. So these people from Rangoon came, and then they got very excited, and then they wanted to build a center and invited Sayadaw and like, please come and like be our guiding teacher at the center. And so Mahasi and Sayadaw was like, he doesn't want to own a place. So Mahasi was run by a committee of elders who were lay people. So there's a saying in Burma that, so in Mahasi Sayadaw's case, like he was not the master of the lay people, kind of like the lay people were the masters of that center.
That's lovely.
So the center was run by lay people, and Mahasi Sayadaw was happy to just to teach, and then he taught he had a generation, his peers who became co-teachers with him, which included Shwe Oo Min Sayadaw, and then they taught another set of younger monks, which included some of you may know Sadamaransi Sayadaw, that's Sayadaw Kundala Vivamsa, also Sayadaw Janaka, Chamya Sayadaw, and Sayadaw Pandita Rama, right? And so.
And Sayadaw Lakana too.
So I think Ma Thet just froze, but let's maybe bring a picture in just now, Catherine, if you could share. I think we have a picture of Shwe Oo Min, and also there's Shwe Oo Min, this teacher of Sayadaw U Tejaniya's. And then also, Catherine, I think the next picture we have is Sayadaw U Pandita and Shwe Oo Min together. So these are the two students of Mahasi Sayadaw, two of the students of Mahasi Sayadaw. And Shwe Oo Min had the other teacher that you spoke of as well, but these are the two colleagues that are connected with IMS closely. Yeah. So I think what's the next picture that we have, Catherine, there? Okay, we'll save that one for later. And so, friends, could you describe the approach of Sayadaw U Tejaniya? Like, what's the approach? How would we describe it? And how has his teaching influenced, the general kind of tenor or the general feel of insight meditation in the last while?
Sure, I'll jump in and offer a few words. I am in some ways a little bit of a purebred. I was a couple years in India looking for a teacher and did a few years in the Goenka tradition and then went to Burma, just hearing something about a well-known teacher in Burma who had just passed away. And this was happening to me in India over and over again. I kept arriving to different monasteries, mostly Tibetan. Oh, there's this amazing teacher. They just died. I felt like a curse that I was like anywhere I was going to go, the teacher was going to kind of fall over and not be available. And I heard about this amazing teacher in Burma. And then it's, oh, wow, I'll go there. And I was told, well, he just passed away. But there's this young teacher who is coming up and seems wonderful. So I was really raised with him in in the Dharma practice, then kind of got folded into the insight world when I came back some years later. So I'll just give a few kind of big overview pointers of, as many of you know, his style and his flavor. Maybe just to situate it a little bit, part of the way U Tejaniya teaches, I think, was part of the context where he was teaching. I think early on he was, a lot of folks were coming to him maybe as a little bit of a corrective if they were getting a little bit tight in their practice, getting kind of caught into the object a lot, the object of the breath or the body, or maybe getting a little bit over-focused in the concentration practices. So part of what he was starting to introduce was more on the side of the mind that's meditating, so not so much emphasizing what object to pay attention to, but more on the emphasis on how are we practicing? What is the attitude? What is the view? What kind of effort are we putting in? And can we know that as we're practicing, rather than getting so focused on what's being known is a little bit more towards the practicing side. And when I would ask him over the years, like, what is it that you're really trying to teach? He would say, I'm just trying to teach the Satipatthana, the teachings on mindfulness that the Buddha laid out as skillfully as I can. And what he would try to unpack is and he really wanted people to practice in a way where this cultivation was happening all day long, that it was really available, partly because he was a lay person. Before he ordained, he worked in his family business, and a lot of his insights, almost all the ones I ever heard about, were from the time that he worked in his family business, a clothing shop. And so he, in some ways, brought that into his teachings to try to encourage us that we can do this anytime, any place. So his emphasis, a little bit less on the object, let's say, of the breath or the body, more towards the qualities of the mind that are being developed. And he would often, or he does talk about meditation. The word from the Pali is bhavana, so bhavana is in Pali, and he would remind us that this word really means to cultivate. So we are cultivating these qualities of the heart-mind in contrast to, we're not trying to cultivate the object like the breath or the hearing, we're cultivating awareness. We're cultivating stability. We're cultivating wisdom, right? We're cultivating wise effort. And so if we orient into that understanding, then we can remember, what are we doing when we are, picking up this idea of meditating. We just, we can remember that what we're really doing is cultivating this heart and mind, right, of awareness, of stability, and over time of wisdom. So effort, wise effort, he really loves to point out that awareness, contrary to what many of us think, like if I were to ask you, how many of you were continuously mindful during the day today, leading up to this moment? Anyone going to raise their hand? I don't think so, right? So we often think awareness is difficult, but what he likes to point out is what is the most challenging part of it is to remember. And if we have that view that the remembering is what's hard, the effort that we can put in then becomes more easily accessible to be continuous, or at least that we have it as that it's available at any moment of the day, any activity, any hearing, any seeing, any emotional state. When we remember, that's another moment of planting the seed of our practice. So continuity in terms of effort, just a light touch, that's all we need. And then it unfolds from there. So a little bit in terms of big picture, less object, more towards the mind. So I'll pause there and just have Carol or Andrea fill in the bits that they want to bring in.
I guess the only other piece that I would add is the emphasis on checking the relationship to what's happening, the attitude. That for me was a huge piece that began to help me to be actually able to see the qualities of the mind. At first, it was a little hard to kind of just say, well, let's look at the mind, but to have this pointing, what's the relationship to what's happening, made it more understandable what it meant to look at the mind. And for me, that was one of the biggest shifts. I knew how to look at objects. I knew how to look at experience. It was much more challenging for me to understand what it meant to watch what my mind was doing, or watch the qualities in the mind, the kind of the pervading qualities that were operating, affecting how I was meeting experience. And so that checking the attitude was a key support for beginning to really be able to see how the mind is working.
All right, I'll say one thing. I was just thinking earlier today, when I think of the big picture, really big picture, my interpretation, everything you guys described it so well. And it's still like what we're doing and how we're doing it. And somehow I feel like the big picture, in fact, you just said this, I saw him briefly in January. He said, it's all about right view, starting from the beginning. It's like a wisdom, the whole thing's about cultivating right view and wisdom. How you do it is, as you guys did, Alexis and Andrea described it so greatly. But I noticed a lot of our tendency is, to learn, like, of course we're giving instructions and how to do it and everything. And then sometimes it becomes, oh, this is how U Tejaniya teaches, another set of instructions, and you do it like this. But the whole thing is about, from day one, from minute one, pointing to right view, wisdom, of anatta, whatever you want to call it, awareness. Is, like I said, everything's awareness. And then whatever way he teaches within that supports that, but not to make the way we offer the instructions another kind of thing that needs to be carried over. Like, oh, this is how the Mahasi style, this is the U Tejaniya style, and you do it like this, because that's missing the whole point, which is, again, just this recognizing awareness, the non-personality of everything. That's why it doesn't matter what the object is. So in a way, so starting from wisdom, all the way through with wisdom, and then these are the really helpful ways that I totally agree with, that help us to see that, to kind of bust us out of our other habits. So anyway, that's all I wanted to say.
Beautiful. Thank you. I'd love to ask a question of all four of you, whether you can tell a story about a significant, maybe the first time you met Sayadaw U Tejaniya, or what drew you to him, or a significant teaching or a significant memory that you have of him that you could share with us, so that we can get to know him a little bit more through your story.
I think Ma Thet must have a lot of stories.
Would you like to start, Ma Thet?
I'll share.
What was it like? What was it like to meet him? Or what is it like to be, to...
So when I first met him, you must remember he was just 1 year a monk. He had ordained in April I think it was 1997. And yeah, I think I met him somewhere in that year or the following year, but before he had attained another wasa. So he was just, he was just one wasa in, when I met him. So he's just a young, unassuming monk. I think the thing that struck me most was that he didn't seem to, at that time, didn't seem to have a personality. He just seemed to be like a teacher. He was just there to deliver what he knew. There was not a lot of him. I think he was very deep into his practice at that time. He had just, left lay life where he had been practicing so intensely. He has said later that as he continued teaching, his practice became more natural, which is why we now experience him as having more of a personality. So it's more natural. But at that time, he was very deep into his practice. And for me, I think the thing that really blew me away was what Andrew was talking about. So he was pointing out to a yogi who I knew from Sayadaw Kundala's center, because I'd been there before coming to Shwe Oo Min. And he was telling her that she used to sway when she was sitting meditation. He was telling her, you're swaying because you're trying to get away from your pain. And she was confused. And he started kind of telling her what she was experiencing, what she had probably been experiencing in her sit. I think what shocked me was that he sort of was explaining something that I had been experiencing in my sits, which was I hated to sit with pain, and when I'm sitting with pain, I will find my mind saying things like, "Oh, if only I could get away from this. If maybe the leg moved like this. And you can kind of in your brain see your body moving or something like that." I don't think a lot of people experience these things anymore because teachers don't force you to sit through pain anymore. But in the early days of Burmese meditation, that was a thing. It was about being a warrior and sitting through your pain. And it was like a badge if you could sit through pain. And I'm a wuss. I did not like sitting through pain. So I did move a lot in my sitting meditation. And it's not when it's voluntary, it's when it's involuntary, when you suddenly a leg shoots out, or and I mean, I've seen it in the meditation hall, yogis just from sitting suddenly be in a lying posture, like bam, you hear a big bam in the meditation hall, and somebody is lying down, and then they might jump up and sit again, and it looks like some incredible meditation experience happening, but it's not. It was just aversion to pain. So that's my first wow about Sayadaw U Tejaniya, because I did see those things happening in my mind, but the way we were taught, we weren't taught to actually note those things, because there was a lot of noting, right? So you're like noting, thinking, and you're not recognizing what you're thinking, although you do see it subliminally. That blew me away.
Wow. So it's kind of blowing me away as you're talking about it too. So that, again, that sense of being able to really tune into what it is that how it is that you're relating to what's here, how it is. Yeah. So when we hear things like, what's your relationship to what's happening, or what's your attitude to what's happening, or ease back, or remember wise effort, those are all things that characterize his approach and that you were tuning into perhaps at that time. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, there was a lot of wisdom. He seemed to be able to read your mind, and but he has said, his teacher also, people would often attribute his teacher with reading minds, and his teacher has a saying. He said, for the wise, thinking about it is more accurate than running to see it. Yeah, because they kind of understand, he said, how the mind works. So it's not that they can read your mind, they just understand how the mind works.
Yes, such a deep understanding of
the nature of the mind.
that. Yes, absolutely. Beautiful. Thank you so much. So other folks, what was a significant memory for you, or what first blew your mind?
I could share how I met him. I met Sayadaw. I was supporting the Chazwa retreat in Burma. I think Carol was teaching, and I was a manager at the Chazwa retreat. And I was unable to sit very long in meditation. I really had to do a lot of lying meditation because I'd had some injuries and some problems. I had been practicing in Burma with U Janaka, with U Pandita, and it was clear that they wanted the sitting meditation and for long stretches. So I wasn't able to go back to those monasteries. And then I heard about Sayadaw U Tejaniya, and I thought, I wonder if he might be willing to let me do lying meditation. So this was my whole motivation for meeting Sayadaw, actually. It was the fact that I was injured and I couldn't practice with these other meditation teachers. And I went to meet Sayadaw. It was 2005, I think, when I met Sayadaw. And I met him and had a conversation with him. And I said at the end of that conversation, I said, Sayadaw, I can't do much sitting meditation. I have to practice lying down. Could I come to your monastery and practice in that way? And he looked at me and he said, and you probably translated for this, Ma Thet. I mean, I don't remember, but you were there. And he looked at me and he said, if you know how to meditate, it doesn't matter what posture you're in. And I thought, oh, I found my teacher. And so I went back the next year and stayed for 6-7 weeks. And it was such a, it felt so healing to be able to be met by a teacher who didn't prioritize how the body was. And then I learned so much about the mind. I learned so much about how to watch the mind that it became transformative for my practice. But I kind of stumbled into Sayadaw because I was injured. You know, if I hadn't gotten injured, I might never have gone there. So it was a fortunate thing. I feel incredibly fortunate that I had that injury that I wasn't able to sit.
Very fortunate. And oh, beautiful, Andrea. That's a big influence. That's a huge shift. That sense of more kind of ease, more emphasis on, again, their relationship with what's happening, not how we have to do it in a certain way. Beautiful. Thanks. Just you're all giving just these characteristics that help us recognize the influence of Sayadaw U Tejaniya on our practice, which we don't always recognize. So Carol and Alexis, what would be?
I didn't have such a transformative thing as Andrea is talking about. But again, I was teaching in Burma for a few years and I sat a lot with other Burmese teachers. I wasn't having a problem. I mean, I love the Mahasi style. I really respected Sayadaw Pandita, and I still do. I mean, so I wasn't like, oh, I need something different. But I was hearing about Tejaniya, and I was in Burma, so I just came early with a couple of friends. I know you were there, of course, Ma Thet. I don't even know what year. 205 or 206, something like that. And so we, sat there. I was with a couple of other good friends who are also Vipassana teachers. First of all, he had a personality by then, and his personality cracks me up. So that's actually helps me a lot. I mean, he's just a character, so I still feel like that. I sometimes forget to be respectful enough because he's just cracking me up, the way he is. But so for instance, we'd be doing walking meditation. He'd say, don't walk slow, because he's trying to not have you just fall into old habits. So we came from Upandita Mahasi practice where you walk like incredibly slowly. So I would think I wasn't walking slow. I think it's walking, and he'd come up in the middle of your walking and go, why are you walking so slow? Speed up. Stuff like that. I always liked it. Or I was sitting in the meditation hall once, and sometimes when strong energy comes, then because I have to sit in a chair for years, I'll sit up, without touching the back, that just that energy comes. I love it when it's like that, right? So sitting like that comes when there's concentration. And he comes in, I think he said it after. He would come in the hall, walk around, see what was going on, and then make comments later. So he goes to me, how come you were sitting up like that? And so the energy came. He goes, you like that, don't you? I said, yeah. He goes, you don't need to do that. Lean back, relax. Just stuff like that. So, and I really appreciated the emphasis on the mind. I didn't find that such a shift. I was always watching the mind with Mahasi practice anyway, but more and more the emphasis on the awareness and the object being less important. So it moves more and more it's like widens what's equal in the awareness, not making the mind second. So I like that. But anyway, so I left. I had to leave and go teach up at Chaswa. So I could only be there. It was less than 2 weeks. I thought, oh, that's nice. And I left. And just leaving, it was like, you know how it is when the awareness is completely steady. It's just like I was awareness, and it was like that for days. And, oh, this is really interesting. I was in the airport and buying stuff. I was just like, oh, awareness is just flowing. It's completely nothing to do with me. And it's completely, and that was, okay, this is really interesting. Something's going on here. So that was like kind of, let me go back and explore it. And then I went back that fall and stayed quite some time. But I wanted to say one other thing that's not about his teaching, but about him. And I was talking about his personality, but this is something that has stayed with me for years. And sometimes I say it was in 2008. I won't go into it, but Burmese monastic politics is like you can't even imagine. So this was a difficult time. And it's a similar way. The Shwe Oo Min was not U Tejaniya's monastery. And he wasn't even the senior monk. He wasn't even the senior abbot. But everyone who came, Burmese, all different foreigners. And you got to realize foreigners is mostly not Westerners. It's Singapore, Malaysia, Vietnam, Thailand, China. Anyway, everyone was coming to practice to get instructions from him. And there's another abbot who was the abbot, got really jealous, and whole 9-yard story I won't go into. But the way things work there is you try to get rid of someone by innuendo and saying bad things about them. Again, there's a lay group that runs the monastery, right? So he was really U Tejaniya was really being badmouthed by this.
No.
No?
In Shwe Oo Min Sayadaw's case, Shwe Oo Min Sayadaw owned the monastery. But when he
Okay.
passed away,
Yeah.
he passed away because he didn't name a successor,
Okay.
the monastery belonged to the Sangha. It wasn't run by a lay committee, but it belonged to the Sangha. So the 6 monks who were remaining, who were in the monastery when Sayadaw died, they had to run the monastery together.
I see.
And the Sangha body, the main Sangha body, the 5 spiritual heads of the entire Burma, they kind of would give directions.
Oh, they were overseeing it. Yeah.
Overseeing. And the way it worked of the 6 young monks who were left there, it just went by hierarchy, by how old they'd been monks.
Oh, yeah, by Wasa,
so the eldest one was in charge first, then he left because he couldn't take the heat, and the second,
Okay, so that's good for that. But anyway, but the bottom line was U Tejaniya was being badmouthed, trying to push him out, saying bad stuff about him that wasn't really true. And I went and I visited during that time because I was in Burma every year, and I didn't go to sit there. It was weird. He wasn't having much students, and he kind of said, "Don't, it's not good to come." Anyway, I was visiting him, and we were just talking, the two of us. And I won't go into it, but there was a lot of true, really not good stuff about one of these abbot monks who was trying to take down a lot of bad stuff that wasn't true. That was true. And I said to Tejaniya, well, why don't you just say that? Why don't you say what's going on with this guy? Just letting him. And he said, and it was difficult for him. It wasn't like la la la. I could tell it was hard. But he said, I don't want to add more akusala to the situation. Akusala means unskillful mental states. And so that really stayed with me because that was like a clear commitment to, like Alexis said, we're cultivating the wholesome qualities of heart and mind, which allows for wisdom to grow. And I said that was totally his commitment, even in a difficult situation. So that stayed with me a long time. That's a side of his personality I don't always see, when he's just teaching, but this really deep commitment. So I love that a lot. That stays with me.
That's powerful. It's powerful for all of us.
Can I say something about that? It's good that you brought that up because Sayadaw sometimes he gets quite frustrated when students ask him political stuff. Because like you said, his commitment is to maintain the goodness inside yourself. His belief is that the power of your purity can influence things. You just have to you have to wait. Like time has to work some things out, but you have to keep your mind safe and
protect your own mind and heart.
That's right. You cannot justify like having even any sort of violent intentions towards somebody else just because like 2 wrongs don't make a right. Just because somebody else is doing something wrong doesn't mean you have a, yeah, you can't.
Thank you. Thank you. Alexis?
Or let's see what to share. I mean, Sayadaw U Tejaniya is, as those of you who have gotten a chance to sit with him, he is such a character. And it's interesting because I do remember, Ma Thet, what you were pointing to, the depth of I think the way he was practicing when I first was there in 2003. There was a little bit of a personality-less nature of him, but as he kind of inhabited his own practice, I think in a more natural way, this is just so much, almost can't separate, I feel like, his personality from the way he teaches, because he really teaches in a way that is natural. And that is the word that I had heard from this British guy who had left Burma, this guy Nathan, I think Ma Thet, you remember him. He's my benefactor. He was just a yogi, and I happened to come across him in India and said about this teacher who teaches in a natural way. And I thought, that's what I'm wanting. I'm wanting natural, something about that word. And so just a couple of things I wanted to say, just in terms of personality. In some ways, personality-wise, you couldn't have two opposite teachers between Shwe Oo Min Sayadaw and who U Tejaniya is in his natural flow. Shwe Oo Min was and I was in the trail of his legacy. I didn't get to be with him, but Ma Thet did. Quiet. U Tejaniya would describe him as, most people wouldn't get the kind of teachings that U Tejaniya got, because he was like a drum. Shwe Oo Min's words, unless you knew to ask him about the Dharma, he would be quiet. But then if you asked the right question, it'd be this boom, and this like the sound of a drum, of the purity of the Dharma coming out. And Shwe Oo Min Sayadaw, if you read anything of his teachings, you can just feel the depth of his commitment to sila, to the development of the heart mind, to non-harming. And I think that a little bit provided the kind of cultural framework for U Tejaniya. He revered his teacher so much. He wouldn't let us call him Sayadaw when we first arrived. He said, no, that's Sayadaw. And he would put the picture behind him of Shwe Oo Min Sayadaw. And it sort of helped him because U Tejaniya, is it 9 or 10 of his brothers and sisters were doctors. And he was the one child who was always in trouble, really in trouble, was considered the black sheep of the family. And then here he's become this incredibly respected within his family, as he practiced with his own teacher and developed. But with this troublemaker of a personality held by the Dharma and his robes, has just a very relatable teacher, and little things that he would do. Anytime he saw that I was getting really attached early on, this is when he had the time to do this, he saw I was getting attached to, some sort of stillness, he would say, all right, time to go out to the market. Or, he's a bit of a foodie, so he'd say, let's go get second breakfast. So we'd already have breakfast in the morning. Then he'd come knock on my door and say, let's go get a second breakfast. So if you know him, you know that this totally makes sense. And so then we would walk out and go get a second breakfast, to just go out and be aware and to be like in life practicing. And that's something that he modeled and does so well, is that kind of encouragement and the sense of ease that practice, yeah, it can be hard, but also bringing that lightness and playfulness. And he, if you listen to any of his interview groups on Dharma Seed, they're just so filled, his yogi interview groups, where people are reporting, and just laughter. And it's laughter about, so much of it is the heart that's hurting and aversion and greed, and still somehow it's playful, almost always some kind of joy that he brings in. So yeah, I'll just leave that.
Oh, beautiful. I'm just really getting this, getting this sense, this reminder, of his practice really as a real practice in life, how to bring this freedom of mind and heart into our daily life. in the marketplace, wherever we are. Ah, beautiful. No separation really between retreat and life, is that?
Actually, that made me think of one more thing in terms of that. I remember, I don't know when, the first couple of years when I would be there, Ma Thet was there, he let me and some of the other Vipassana teachers, he would let us sit in a lot of the interview groups. Remember that, Ma Thet? Till there got to be too many people, and then he had to, like, I can't forget it. But he let me sit in. So I sat in on quite a few interview groups, which was so helpful because I would hear how he responded or how he dialed with all different people in all different situations. And that's where I really got it. The sense about everything is equal practice. That's just what I wanted to say. I remember one group, where somebody would report some, I don't know what, but some kind of, what we would call deep or still practice or seeing some subtlety of Vedana or whatever. And he said whatever was appropriate, whether they were stuck or what they were seeing. Then someone else I remember was reporting, but with this real sense, I'm really seeing a lot of, I forget what it was, whether they were seeing Vedana or what, but they were watching butterflies and seeing this and that. And, and I could just hear so many other teachers, and I'm not going to just put on Burmese teachers, say, yeah, you're looking at butterflies, but what's going on. But he was like, he really picked up on what they were, the way they were describing their mind. And it wasn't just like flaking out. They were really, really seeing these qualities of awareness, whatever it was. And he was just as interested. And when I left that group, and after I'd seen a few others, I realized, oh, he's not just saying, as we hear a lot of times, you can be just as mindful in daily life. It's just as important. They're equal, right? They're equal. You know how often you hear that. And I thought, he's not just saying they're equal. It is equal in the way he's teaching and the way he's seeing. And I saw enough things to go, that's not just some line. And that was really, really helpful to me to start seeing, because then you're looking at the butterflies and stuff, and you're seeing the same subtle qualities in the mind that you might see in some little subtle meditation. Doesn't matter. It's the same mind, the same qualities of the kilesa or the purity. So that's something that also, being able to sit in a lot of interview groups really helped me to see that wasn't a line. That's really true, and that widened things a lot.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious, maybe this for Carol and Andrea, maybe, how do you bring in the skillful means in Mahasi tradition and the U Tejaniya's teachings? Like each will have their skillful means, each will have their times. How do you bring them in your, and this may be for Alexis and Ma Thet too, in your practice and in your teaching?
That's a pretty big question. What I would say is that in my own practice, the approach that Sayadaw teaches is my practice. I don't shift to I don't shift to an object-based practice. I'm watching the mind pretty much. So the shift for me has become pretty integrated in my own practice. That said, that's now. There were stretches of time right after I met Sayadaw that I was doing concentration practice, and I found that this weaving or blending of the relaxation, the receptivity that Sayadaw U Tejaniya emphasizes, receiving the experience or not like diving into the object. I found that the relaxation, and Sayadaw at that point was really heavily emphasizing relaxation. I don't know if he's still emphasizing it quite as strongly, but it was very much the transmission I got when I met him. Just relax, relax. I needed it. That was for sure. But I went I worked with a teacher who was teaching a concentration practice not long after I spent a couple of years working with Sayadaw U Tejaniya. And what I began to see is that when I did the concentration practice, I focused in on the object of the breath. I was using breath as my object. My mind would get pretty tight. And then I would realize the mind's too tight. I need to settle back. And what I found is that the open awareness practice, the receptivity that Sayadaw talked about, the not focusing on the object, was how my mind could rest and relax. And then I noticed that just after I had spent some time doing that, it was very easy to connect with the breath. And then the mind would get all tight around the breath again. And so I spent this period of time going back and forth between those two. I'd spend some time focusing on the breath, seeing the mind get tight, heading back to more the practice that Sayadaw U Tejaniya taught, not using objects, just letting the experience be what it was and noticing it, noticing the relaxation of mind. And at some point I thought, why wait? I mean, why do like 3 days of one and then 3 days of another? Why don't I start every sitting with this relaxation and see if I can integrate these two? And so that began to be an exploration. So with concentration practice, I found the relaxation, the receptivity of breath, as opposed to going out and focusing on the breath. So rather than, aiming at the object, it was more letting the object be received. And that was something that I had been exploring with just any object, just receiving the experience. And so that I began to start my meditation with that relaxed receptivity, and I let that be primary. So if I found the mind, if I was even with the breath for one breath and it started to get tight, I would relax. I would settle back. So I made the relaxation and the receptivity be primary. And that allowed for a blending of the concentration practice with some of the tools that I had learned, some of the techniques that I had learned from Sayadaw U Tejaniya. So that was a way that they blended in my own practice. Yeah, I think there's a lot of ways we could blend these, and I think for some people, I mean, I don't think that what Sayadaw U Pandita teaches is focus on the object and get really tense. That's what I did, and that was the habit of my mind, and I needed some kind of corrective for that. But the being with an object, the way Sayadaw U Pandita teaches, can be done with this very soft, receptive mind. And so, for me, I needed to learn something more about that receptivity. It wasn't, I don't know, I was just really, my mind was so focused outward that it needed a little bit of that shaking up. But yeah, I don't think that that's what U Pandita teaches. I don't think that that's in the Mahasi approach at all. But it was what I heard. It was how I had engaged with it. So that corrective was really helpful for me.
Thank you, Andrea. Appreciate that. Yeah. Yeah. Might be speaking for many people. Yeah. Carol, anything to add? I saw you nodding and
No, my experience is different from Andrea's, of course, because our minds are different. And everybody, these different, like Kirk, are different aspects. But first of all, if I were teaching Mahasi style, I'm not trying to blend the two. And I would just like to, I mean, it's naturally a teach in a more relaxed way anyway. But just to get a sense, it's not that all the styles can just be blended together, that one's better than the other. I'm saying this to all the yogis out there. If I were teaching a Mahasi style retreat, which I haven't done much because somehow people think all I do is this particular style, but it would just be that, of course, the language would be much more about receptive and relaxing, and it's not so much that the object is expanded, which was my experience with U Pandita anyway, to include the mind and everything that's going on in the mind. So that wasn't like new for me. That's part of it. And when I was sitting U Pandita style and noting, I would say 9/10 of my notes were mental qualities, what was going on. So that wasn't different. But the sense of definitely not making the object or the meaning of the object so important. But more for me, the piece is how it changed my practice is the awareness and the quality of the mind when there's kilesa and when there's not. when the mind's wholesome and when there's not. And that's I don't say important. That's more where the attention is. I remember one time with Sayadaw U Tejaniya, I was at his place and said, I can't quite tell if it's aversion or clinging. I was really in there quiet. And he goes, just notice tension in the mind. It doesn't matter. Just learning that quality. So it's really like a wisdom thing. Knowing when there's kalesis unrecognized in the mind, it is affecting. It's like a lens through which you can't trust your thoughts, you can't trust your assessments, you can't trust anything the mind's saying. It's through the kilesa lens, and learning that has been so freeing. But then learning, it doesn't matter if awareness doesn't care. This is my language. If it's kilesa or if it's joy, we're just going to just receive whatever's happening. And so it really has moved into a real I don't want to say emptiness, but anatta or whatever. It's so clear that whatever's happening, if there's wholesomeness in the mind, you just keep paying attention. If it's unwholesome, you just keep paying attention. Awareness does itself, and without the identification, it clears up. Sort of what Alexis was saying, or Ma Thet was saying, his deep commitment to cultivating wholesome. That just got more and more clear for me and more interesting. But I think since really his practice is about, again, not the specifics, but like what helps to recognize the wholesome and unwholesome quality of mind, what helps to really trust the awareness rather than the Sakaya Ditti, the sense of self. And what he does is corrective, like Andrea described so beautifully. What really corrected that tension, which so many people do have, it's really common, but someone else might need a different corrective. And that the overarching thing isn't about what you're doing, or even you could be like really, this is my opinion, really focusing on one object in a samatha kind of way, and it's the awareness that knows that's what's happening. And so then, as Andrea said, you become aware when there's tension, you become aware when there's clinging. I did a metta retreat myself a couple of years ago, and it was really interesting because I was just trying to do metta, but of course the just awareness was always primary because that's just there, and then noticing what would come up in the mind. So like you said, it would be a sense of if there was clinging, if it was getting tight, that would just be aware. It'd be naturally, okay, clinging is like this, not trying to, but it allowed for a deepening into the metta, much more of a deepening into the metta. And I was doing it in a classic way with phrases and the whole deal, right? Not trying to get jhana or anything, but a deepening into actually feeling the metta, feeling the dukkha, being more 100% present with it because awareness is really what's primary. And just, I don't know, practicing in that way just opened everything, is allowed, and everything deepened in the whole. Well, I don't know if it makes sense, but that was really my experience. And I feel like the more we understand the way he's trying to teach, it's applicable to any kind of technique because you're approaching it with right view, with wise understanding, and that's the bottom line. With wise understanding, we can meet all different kind of techniques, and some techniques work for one personality, and some techniques work for a different personality. There's no technique that's all bad or all good. I mean, within the wholesome realm of stuff. This is all my opinion. I'm just saying it's all my opinion, but I really feel like it's not limited to any way. It's applicable, just like it's applicable to all of our life. It's applicable to different forms of meditation practice. And it's not like they all just blend into one, though. If I'm doing metta, I'm not like trying to do something else. I'm doing metta, but awareness knows everything. Awareness can be present for everything, receiving everything. There's nothing that needs to be outside of awareness. So meditation techniques come within that, like cooking breakfast or something. Okay, that's all I have to say.
Great. So within all these techniques, the whole spectrum, it's fundamentally all of them are pointing to, is there clinging, is there non-clinging? What's the relationship to what's happening? And that is the fundamental kind of underlying of all
I wasn't talking about what the main thing of other techniques is. I'm not trying to say that. I was saying one hopes that's the bottom line.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, I just want to say one other thing that was funny. When I just saw him recently, we were just chatting and I said something about emptiness, and he goes, Oh, this might be not be helping us. Emptiness, that's like the Mahayanas, they talk about emptiness. Everything out there is emptiness. But we just talk about anatta. It's like it's the Theravada zero. I loved it. Anatta, just like, whatever's arising. Anyway, so I didn't use the word emptiness on purpose, thinking about that.
Thanks. Thanks, Carol. Alexis, were you going to jump in with something? No. Okay, great. Well, thanks for that. And I wonder where it feels helpful to go now in terms of we we were going to talk about one teaching or guidance from Sayadaw U Tejaniya that you would want to lift up, or does it feel like or have we touched on that, or is there another teaching or guidance that you'd like to close with?
Pictures. What about the pictures?
Oh, pictures. Oh, yeah, we've got some good pictures. So yes, so maybe Alexis can tell us a story about this picture. Catherine, if you could bring up that. There we go.
Let's see. I don't know what too much of a story about this, but so you can see me there. Next Sayadaw's on the left, and I am to his right. I'm probably a year into being a monk there, and these are two of his brothers that are there. Ma Thet, is that his mom in the background, Moosh?
That's his mom in the background, and
Yeah.
that's brother number 6 and number 7.
And I believe that's his parents' home. Do you recognize
Yes,
it? Yeah.
that's his parents' home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is something
They're living-
Sayadaw would do, is he'd take some of the people staying in the monastery out, the monks and friends that are there, and we'd go out for meals. And so this is one of those outings. Sayadaw, you can see he's probably, it's 2003, so he must have been in his 40s then. Is that right? Yeah, probably 43. So his
41.
Sayadaw right now is 63, so he's 10 years older than I am, so not too hard for me to keep track. So he's 63. And yeah, it was a time of my life being.
He just turned 64,
Did he? Oh, yeah, that's right. Just 2 days ago?
Just 3 days ago. 3 days.
ago,
Oh, well, 3 days
yeah.
for you. Yeah.
Yeah. But it was so beautiful. I mean, I remember just the feeling of being able to study with someone like Sayadaw who I remember feeling like he has some kind of gift that like a car mechanic would have, knowing everything about every kind of car that's out there. He would, when people would come to him, you just feel like he understood something that was going on about their hearts and minds and could be with them in it. And it was so interesting to, to just get that exposure and that interest. And yeah, so that was that moment in time. Unfortunately, 2003 was not a time that we carried phones inside of our cameras with our phones, and so I didn't have any photographs really from that time. But this was one of the ones that were kept.
Beautiful touchstone memory.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. Mm. And we have another photo as well with Sayadaw U Tejaniya and Andrea. Maybe you can just share a little bit about that one, Andrea.
Yeah, this was at the end of a 2-week retreat that Sayadaw taught at IMS. And I think the retreat had closed, and he just sat there, and several of us just came up afterwards and were just having Dharma conversation with him. Yeah, that's Patricia Genoux next to me. And the other side of me is, I believe, Adrian Ross. And then a dear friend of mine is sitting next to Sayadaw U Tejaniya, Peter Medina, who died recently, or died a few years ago. Yeah, we were just having a Dharma conversation with him. It was, I think I remember the question I was asking him, which was about people were very curious about progress of insight. And so I was asking on behalf of some others about what Sayadaw's perspective on progress of insight was.
And what did he say?
I mean, the way that the piece that in some meditation practices, let's say the Mahasi approach, and maybe in the way certain teachers teach the Mahasi approach, the progress of insight seems to unfold in a quite clear way. And I was asking him about that with his style of practice, and he said it could be much more organic, that it wouldn't necessarily seem to unfold in the same very clear way. That's what I recall him saying about that.
Beautiful, interesting. Thank you for sharing that with us. Yeah. Thanks, Catherine. I think that's it for our pictures. I wonder if I could just ask you if we could clarify vocabulary a little bit, just so that we get a sense of when we talk about awareness. Like there's mindfulness, which is, and then awareness. Are you saying it's like a broad field within which everything is known? So is that where? Can you talk about that vocabulary just a little bit for us?
I think
You
Sayadaw
get different
tends to
answers
use,
from each of us.
yeah. I think
You
Sayadaw
might
tends
get
to
different
use
answers from each of us.
awareness. Yeah, awareness and mindfulness for him is the same word. It's just sati. So for him, it's just sati. He does talk about awareness that has gained momentum, like what has become natural, versus when you're trying to be aware, which I think you can call attention. So when you're trying to pay attention, that's when you're, like, inverted commas, trying to practice mindfulness or trying to develop mindfulness or awareness. That's really attention. We're paying attention to things. But when it opens up and it becomes just awareness, that's sati. That's where you're not just, that's where there's that receptivity is there. And then it's much more, so yeah, we can use it how it is helpful for us. But Sayadaw, he doesn't split words into fine hairs like I do. Okay.
Thanks, Ma Thet. Did anyone else want to? Sounds like there was other thoughts in the room around that, or is that good for that?
I think that seems good.
Okay, great. I'm wondering if I don't think we've got any questions right now from the room. So maybe we could see if there's any one additional teaching or guidance from Sayadaw U Tejaniya that you would want to lift up.
I'll say something. The one of the things that often would happen, because at the monastery, in Burma, which is called Shwe Oo Min after U Tejaniya's teacher's name, so the monastery is called Shwe Oo Min. People are allowed to walk around and talk. There's a meditation hall. Oftentimes, the talking would even happen in the meditation hall. So for some Westerners who wanted their silence, and then sometimes Burmese would be very casually talking or on a phone because it's their it's their backyard. It's like, just going down the street to the monastery. And so a different attitude towards the place and towards practice. And so there could be a feeling when people would come to visit from other retreat centers, like, oh, the yogis here are just goofing around. They're not doing the real practice. If you're really doing the practice, you would have a grimace on your face, or there'd be something that would look painful. It's not really like that, but just you'd look disciplined, you'd be quiet, you'd be doing your thing. But what was remarkable, truly, is that any conversation you heard, if you were just walking by anyone, it was always Dharma. And if you stayed there long enough, you would really experience the development of wisdom. and just is such an inspiring thing. And so one of the things that I really enjoyed the way U Tejaniya would offer as this word relaxation, Andrea was bringing it up. There was this relaxed environment, but if you asked Sayadaw about your commitment to practice, he would say wholehearted. And in one of the retreats, Ma Thet, we were there together in Finland, someone was asking him about relaxation. And for him at that moment, he would say, oh, you already know how to relax. That's when you're beginning. Now it's wholehearted, but wholehearted, not turning into tension, not turning into, I got to get somewhere, but just this wholehearted, literally with your heart caring about the present moment, caring about how we're treating ourselves, about how we're doing our life that we're in right now, how are we in this present moment? And that sense of wholehearted, to me, is just, it's gone in so deeply into how I relate to the Dharma, how I think about practice, how I am in life. And so wonderful kind of joining of this playful, relaxed, easeful, wholehearted, really value. This life is impermanent. As we know, this world is not always reliable. Can we practice with our whole heart as we're going through all the cycles, all the days that we have? So just that combination that he would bring. So.
Lovely. Feels to me like you're giving us all instruction for how to be right now and how to be when this call's done, how to carry on. Yeah.
I was surprised when he said wholehearted, because I was like, oh, wholehearted. Oh, okay. That, even though he says it a lot, he says why he wants people to practice in a way that's light is so that they can feel that they can practice from the moment the eyes open in the morning and you're waking up until that last moment, and which is a tall order in daily life, but to know that that's available, if we're practicing in a way that feels, oh yeah, I can remember something that's happening in any given moment, and just to let that keep building over time.
So that we can sustain it for over time, not
Yeah.
trying hard to sustain it and then get tired. Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, Andrea.
Yeah, I think there's a couple pieces that really I just want to kind of offer or lift up, as you say. And it is the wisdom side of things, what Carol brought in, the right view, the wisdom. He talked about wisdom more than any other teacher that I knew. And he talked about not only like the perspective of right view, of recognizing the impermanent and the unreliable and the not self nature of experience, but also pointing to how wisdom is something that functions in our minds, that we can begin to see how wisdom is working and when it's working. He gave me the instruction one time, can you notice wisdom working in your mind? And I'm like, what the heck does that even mean? I didn't really understand, but I went off and like started playing with that instruction. So that's a piece that I found so interesting, to begin to recognize and feel, what does it mean when wisdom is strong, when wisdom is working. The other thing that I began to realize is the whole conditioned nature of experience in our practice. I mean, he would talk about wisdom. He would talk about wisdom teachings. He talked about the aggregates quite a bit. He talked about perception quite a bit. He talked about, how we can see certain things in a certain way. And then I would go off and try to do those things and get a headache, and I'd come back and I'd report what I was what I was trying to do. And he says, were you trying to do that? And I said, yes, I thought that's what you told me to do. And And then he gave me one of the key instructions that I often repeat in my retreats. Nothing I say is something for you to do. It's just some things that you might be able to notice. And what I began to understand is that by being in the field of hearing about these teachings over and over again, and then just being with my experience, it was a condition. Those teachings that he gave were a condition to allow me to be able to see something new. But it wasn't something to try to do or to figure out. So that was a shift of how I understood the practice working, more organically and less that I was in charge of doing it.
Thanks, Andrea. And when you say, I just want to ask about wisdom, when you talk about wisdom, working and exploring that, can we say in a shorthand way, is clinging here, is not here? What supports non-clinging? What supports clinging? That kind of wisdom of seeing, is there freedom or not freedom?
That would be one way that wisdom would show up. If there was not clinging, we could feel that release from clinging. We might notice the absence of clinging. We might notice that we can notice clinging without being in the clinging. And so there's a lot of different ways that even around clinging, that wisdom might show up.
Right. Thank you. Beautiful, beautiful. Lifting up wisdom. Fantastic. Carol or Ma Thet, anything to lift up? Any last thoughts about? And we do have a question, but I'll hold that until we've all chimed in on this. Anything else to highlight? Any other his teachings that have really spoken to you or that you feel are we want to emphasize? Nope. Okay. Then maybe I'll just offer this question that we have in the chat. This is from Jim, and he's referring, Carol, to when you were talking about awareness. He says, Carol talked about leaving and a strong ongoing awareness that continued on after you were on retreat, Carol, and that was surprising you and caused you to come back. And can you talk more about that and how that was cultivated? And
well, if you recognize the fact that, as Ma Thet said, if you want to go talk about awareness as sati, I mean, the whole language thing, it's become natural. There is no cultivation happening at that time because you're not doing it. That's the whole point. And what we do is we hear that and we want to know how to get it, right? I mean, I'm imputing. I don't know if that's what the question's about. But it becomes so his whole little autobiography, when awareness becomes natural. It's just the more and more awareness we recognize mindfulness or whatever without the meing, it becomes more the habit of mind. It's all cause and effect. Nothing's personal. We recognize that wanting and we believe it and we identify with it and we go with it. So wanting comes up in our mind really easily, really well, and it's me. The more awareness or mindfulness or whatever you want to call it, recognizes wanting and doesn't become wanting, it's just another arising object. And the more and more I say, oh, awareness is like this, mindfulness is like this, whatever you want to call it, without adding the me, the mind, the Sakkaya Ditthi, that becomes more and more the natural habit of mind. And so, if you want to say cultivating the wholesome, you could put it that way. It's not like I'm going to cultivate steady awareness and have it like that. It's just this moment. What's happening this moment? Everything we've said is only what's happening this moment. Mindfulness, recognizing what's happening now, and there's nothing outside of the realm of what's happening. If you want to cultivate it, bhavana, that's what we're doing. Not even the end result of having a natural flowing awareness. That's just a thing the mind wants. Again, what's happening now? What's happening now? And no matter what's happening, as soon as awareness or mindfulness is recognized, it could be clinging, it could be wanting, it could be I want this. Doesn't matter. Oh yeah, mindfulness recognizing I want to have steady awareness. Fine. That's a thought. That's a wanting. And here's mindfulness. Nothing. That's all I could say about. If you want to cultivate it, what's happening right now?
Great.
Recognizing what's happening in the mind.
Actually, his final question is any comment about where that came from?
Sorry.
That was his comment. And so it sounds like from what you've said, it's really coming from this sense of tuning into it's not me doing it.
I wasn't tuning into it. I wasn't doing anything. Not me tuning into I'm not doing it. No, me doing anything.
No me doing anything.
That's what we can't get. No me
Right.
experience. I mean, there's the thought, oh, this is interesting, and I could really see I couldn't stop it. It was just like going on. It was just, that's all.
Just rolling on, conditions rolling
Yeah.
on. Okay, great. Thank you. Let's see now. I have another question. Sorry?
Sorry, can I just chime in here for a brief second?
Yes, definitely.
Just for what Carol said, which is totally, totally true. And very, very sometimes, Sayadaw will have a yogi that's clearly been doing everything Carol said, just being aware, very accepting of the moment. And but they're still in doing mode. And he will say to the yogi, don't try to be aware and see what you can know. See what's happening. And very, very sometimes. And he has said it too that I've known, it's kind of set them free. I think it's sort of like they suddenly realize that their awareness is pretty hardworking. It kind of carries on.
Carries on all by itself.
It does, but it doesn't mean these yogis stop practicing. It's like Carol is still here teaching us and practicing. It doesn't mean that, there's no free lunch. So, but just like sometimes, and all of you who are teachers will, I'm sure you recognize that in your students as well sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Ma Thet,
Ma Thet, she reminded me of something Sayadaw said about that there's no free lunch. I went back next time I saw him. Of course, I didn't stay like that. I went back the next time I saw him and I was describing that, and then I was so naive. I can't believe all the practice I'd done. I was still this naive, And I said to him, wow, it must be so great to be living like that all the time. And he just laughs at me and goes, like, yeah, it's great when you get in the zone like that, isn't it? And that's it, right? You're in the zone and you're in it for a while, and then boom, me comes back and wanting, and then here we are again. I loved it.
Good. Very comforting, humanizing. Ma Thet, we do have a question for you in the chat. This is, can Ma Thet speak to what, if anything, Sayadaw has shared with her about how his practice has helped him overcome depression and anxiety? He appears to be a very joyful person, but I understood him to have a history of depression, etc. Thank you. Yes.
Okay, Sayadaw's depression was precipitated by his father taking him out of university to run the family business. So when Sayadaw made the commitment to start practicing he recognized at one point that depression was just a lot of frustrated desire. Yeah, that it was just like his mind was really angry about not getting what he wanted, which was to stay in school and keep playing, because he failed the first year because he was so busy playing. But I think he also recognized that his father took him out of university to run the business because he actually had the business acumen to do it. But he clearly wasn't not so much cut out for school. He could have done well in school. He just wasn't putting his mind to it. But their family was in a situation where they needed help, and his father thought that he was the best candidate for the job. He and another brother, number 5. The rest of his brothers were, doctors, so they weren't going to be pulled out. And the way he managed his depression was, I think at the point when he had made the commitment to practice, was he just didn't think anymore about it. All he did was he practiced. He just committed himself to just being aware. And I want to add a caveat here for anyone who wants to throw themselves into something like this is, so Sayadaw has, has said how, he started practicing from around the age of 11. And somewhere in the first few years of practicing with his teacher while on retreat, he understood something very deeply about right attitude, about not trying to make things happen. That if he, like Andrea described just now and Carol described just now, that if you just stay with your experience, that what will happen will happen. Things will get discovered. So this openness and receptivity, he realized that deeply. So he's always had very good attitude about practice. Like he has no greed and aversion when it comes to his practice. He can have greed and aversion about things outside, like he wanted very much to stay in school or something. But when it came to practice, he had no greed and aversion about his practice, which is why he could throw himself into the practice so fully and benefit from it so fully. And it still took like more than a year of being in that before, like, it got easier and easier, and by his admission, he didn't, not so much admission, but by his words, like, he did not become a monk to get away from the world, right? He became a monk because he wanted to practice even more, realize even more, because he found the whole Dharma fascinating, right? There's something else I wanted to say about. Oh yeah, so the caveat is, there are some people who have depression who want to throw themselves into practice, and one person that we met that had a depression and was trying to practice Sayadaw's way, one of the things that this person told Sayadaw was when she's trying to practice with her experience, she gets sucked deeper and deeper inside. When Sayadaw heard her story, it was very clear. Sayadaw was like, you don't keep looking at the mind if things are getting worse and worse. So the skillfulness. So what Sayadaw had on his side was skillfulness in meditation. So if we don't have that skillfulness, we cannot throw ourselves into meditation the way he did, because there can be consequences which Alexis was there, remember, in Finland. And so then Sayadaw, one of his instructions is, when it gets overwhelming, or it's like similar to washing paint, right? When you
Maybe she'll come back. And did you want to say anything else about that?
I don't know what she was gonna, I know the incident. I don't know what she was gonna refer to, what her point was about what happened in Finland. But I appreciated what she was saying about the skillfulness, because being skillful in your practice is actually a core part of what U Tejaniya encourages. And that skillfulness is really the wisdom. Because I think sometimes this is something he would often say, is like, practice is not meant to turn us into mechanical automatons, like we're just doing something. And it's easy to get into a habit of doing the same thing over and over again. But the skillfulness is a kind of care, a wise caretaking of how are we practicing. So he tells this hilarious story of when he was caught in depression. And his skillfulness was realizing when it was too much for him, he would show this to us. This was one of the first stories I remember, like, just loving this teacher, because like he described being pulled into depression so much, he would take one of those smelling sticks, I don't know what they're called exactly, like the Vicks vapor or something, where you're supposed to just go and do it like one inhalation and then take it out of your nose. He would put it in his nose and then leave it there while he was in the marketplace with this thing sticking out, talking to clients coming to the shop. And he said it was the only thing that was strong enough as an object that could pull him towards that instead of pull him towards the depression. So he was understanding from a Dharma perspective what was happening was the depression was pulling his attention into it. So he would use a smelling stick as an equal and greater object that could keep his attention away from what the depression was getting his mind to feel, to believe, to think, the mood. And it was just an interesting thing to hear him describe this, like that he couldn't, his awareness and wisdom weren't enough at that time to match the strength of that object, that depression. So he would use another object that was more neutral, or at least, I think probably unpleasant in some ways, having this vapor thing going into your sinuses. It's like chewing on wasabi all day long or something. I don't know if it's that strong, but that's
Stronger
one
than the depression.
of your depression. I don't think that's recommended anywhere. But as from a theory point of view, how the experience overwhelms the mind and can pull us in, and he was using this object to help him come out. And when he was out, then he could try to bring awareness and wisdom to this package, right, of the depression. And I learned a lot when he would describe that, partly just the permission to explore what is our relationship to our present experience. And to know that requires knowing the whole picture of our mind, our attitude, our view, our effort. All of that comes into play.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Beautiful. And beautiful. And the wisdom of knowing when to stay with something and when to shift to something else, and how to support the mind.
Yeah. And he, as
To
he was
have
telling
to
that
move
story,
into right, to move
as
into
he was
what.
telling that story, he would pick up the stick and he would just put it in his nose just to demonstrate again what he what he would do. And I thought, oh, this is great. I love practicing in this way where it gets to be playful and you're exploring and learning about how the mind is working and our, sometimes if something is so strong, it's hard to come out. Of course, we get pulled into things. And learning what is it like to get pulled in? Can we come out of something, not to escape it, but to balance the mind to then see if we have that capacity now to learn something.
To come into
The
wise
piece
relationship.
of the playfulness is what I wanted to kind of point to. That story, it really, I mean, it shows that kind of playfulness in his talking about it, especially, and how he talked about it. But it also, to me, it really like broke open this idea that there are specific tools and techniques that you follow, and it's like, what works? The sense of sticking a Vicks inhaler up your nose, that works. Okay, great. Let's do that. And to not be kind of caught by any sense of, okay, here are the antidotes to the hindrances, and this is what we do, but to be more playful in finding our own way to navigate these things.
And feeling internally what brings us into wise relationship with whatever's happening. Oh, beautiful. Thank you, everyone. Ma Thet, welcome back for the last few minutes. We kind of carried on from with the stories.
Sorry.
That's
Yeah.
okay.
Yes, it just, and Andrew was saying it's spot on. So yeah, basically that. I think Sayadaw had a word at one time. Every time he learns English, he catches on to some word at some time, which becomes his catchphrase at the time. One of those things, in one of the years he went to IMS, was whatever. Yeah. The playfulness. Yeah.
Playfulness. Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. This might be a nice place to close our time together with this sense of play, playfulness, whatever we can bring in to move our minds and hearts into wise relationship with what's happening. Beautiful. I don't think we have other questions, and perhaps one of you could dedicate the merit of our time together. Or all three of you say a few words. All right, Carol.
I don't mind. Yeah. I think it's really actually a beautiful thing dedicating the mirror. We don't do it so much here in the West. One of the things I love about being in Burma is how first the sense of dedicating the merit means you're appreciating the wholesome deeds of mind, speech, and body that you've done. So it's coming from a place of appreciating your own wholesomeness rather than getting down on yourself. And so whenever you do something, it can be any little thing. And people say, "Oh, you did this thing." You could dedicate the merit of this to all beings. So it's something that comes more into people's lives. I forget to do it here, but it's a beautiful thing to bring into one's life because you're appreciating your goodness, you're appreciating the wholesomeness, and then you're not keeping it. It's about me. It's about this goodness is really what we can offer to the world. You could say, it's really like not about me, but about bringing, just like Ma Thet was saying, Sayadaw was saying, not to get into like opinions and stuff with politics, but keep cultivating the wholesomeness and is to share with all beings. So to me, sharing the merit's a lovely thing we can do anytime. So just now, it helps to just take a sense and just bring your attention, if it's not here, just coming here. However you're feeling, however your body feels, however your mind feels, whatever your mood is, it doesn't matter. Just being here, mindfulness receiving, it's like this now. And notice that quality in the heart mind of simply receiving. Oh, there's no struggle. There's not a problem. You don't need something to be different. It's just this now. Settling in, receiving physical, mental experience, whatever mood. And take a moment to just reflect. Even whatever went on while we were talking, we're all here together talking about Dharma. In whatever thoughts or feelings we have, it's really wholesome. The Buddha would often say, if you're going to wise speech, is talking about Dharma. That's a really wholesome thing. We've been cultivating wholesomeness all this time. Whatever speech or actions you've done today, whatever you've done that's not harming, just living with the precepts every day is a really wholesome thing. So just take a moment to internally just reflect on your wise intentions, your wholesome intentions, why you even signed up for this thing, why you listened all this time if you're still here. There's like wholesomeness in that. So we can just collect it and say, just may this wholesome qualities created in my own heart, my own mind, may it be for my own awakening and freedom from suffering, but may it also go out and be shared with all beings everywhere. May the wholesome energies created by our time together here, by our wanting to bring more wisdom and less suffering into this world, may those wholesome energies be just spread out from our bodies, from this computer, from wherever we are, to all beings everywhere, without distinction, without preference. May our actions and our speech be a cause, be a condition for all beings everywhere to come to freedom from suffering, to cultivate wisdom and compassion. May all beings everywhere live with freedom. And thank you all.
Thank you so much, Carol.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much, each one of you.
Thank
Alexis,
you, Jeannie.
Ma Thet.
Yeah, thank you for
Thank you,
organizing
Jeannie.
this.
Yeah, really. And for your really supportive and enthusiastic and loving demeanor.
Well, it's
And for shepherding us in the
Yeah,
lead up
really.
as
We're
all the prep we
yeah,
did.
right. We're like
it,
stray cats, right?
I didn't want to say anything, but
We know. We're aware.
it's just a huge delight. And on behalf of the whole Sangha, I just want to say that there's a river of appreciation running through our hearts for you all,
This
for
is so
each one of
sweet.
you. Yeah, thank you
Thanks,
so
all your
very
little
much.
cute hearts.
Yeah, thank you all.
Would friends like to unmute if we went to gallery and unmute and we could just all together say thank you,
Oh,
goodbye. I know that
blessings to
everyone
you all.